Okay.
Hello. Welcome early. Not early, I guess, because we're late, but
Right.
people who waited
Whatever.
for us, thank you.
Yeah.
It'll be
We
worth it,
love
we
you.
promise.
Um, Here we go. Okay. I see us. Go live. There we go. Hello, everybody. Ignited.
Welcome back to the next episode. I can't even say episode. Welcome back to the
Next
next
episode.
episode of the Ignited podcast tonight. We are nearing the end of this book, Britt.
I know.
Isn't it wild? What a journey it's been.
It's been pretty crazy. My mind's been blown many times.
Right? Even
Yeah.
just with, I feel like not only with the learning, but the community that we're building around this
Yeah.
and like the culture we're building around this,
Yeah.
the resource we've been able to make. And actually, now might be a cool time to announce our special surprise, Brittany.
Do you want to do it?
You
I'm
should do
so
the
excited.
honors. You should
Okay.
do the honors.
Okay. So on April 22nd, right? April 22nd, we are going to be interviewing Alfie. And if you don't know, because we're first name basis with this individual.
He may not have known that when we
No.
emailed him and referred to him as Alfie and was like, "Oh, have I met you before?" And we were like,
No.
"Well, we feel like we've met you."
We know you, sir. Yes, on April 22nd, we are going to be interviewing the author of the book, Punished by Rewards. And he has given so many conferences, so many seminars, done so many public speaking events on intrinsic motivation and learning and how rewards punish. And we will be interviewing him 30 minutes. It's going to be amazing. And we want to see what the community wants to hear from him. So if you have any questions for Alfie, please leave them in the comments and we will record them. And hopefully we get a chance to ask all of them. But if not, we'll definitely be asking the questions that multiple people want to hear, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
We have been holding this in for months. We
Yeah.
found this out in February.
Gosh, that's
Freaked
crazy.
out. Had
Time
a
flies.
fangirl moment for
Yeah, we did.
real. And this is so exciting for us. We're pumped. And it's not going to be a live recording, but like we will put everything out after the fact.
We will.
It's going to be awesome. So that's something to look forward to coming up.
Yeah.
Much like this episode is something to look forward to. Hooked on Learning.
This was a good chapter. Remember last
Chapter 11.
episode, I was like, I felt like about the chapter because it was more about like work and job life. But this was specifically for the classroom and all about like what to do instead of what not to do.
And I feel like it's a controversial one too with grades. That's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, the more I read it, the more I was like, damn, yeah, that's a really good point. Like, that's a really good point. How have I not thought of this before? Like, I consider myself a pretty revolutionary thinker.
That's basically the theme too, I feel like, of the book. It's like, damn, that was a pretty good point, and we should have thought of this before.
Yeah, like
our next t-shirt designs.
Right. We should have thought of this.
Exactly, right? Damn, that was a good point.
Damn, that should be a t-shirt.
That should be. We gotta add it to our list. We got a running list. Like we actually have this list.
Yeah.
This is not just some fictional thing. We actually do this.
Just wait. We're gonna come out with like a clothing line.
Yeah, wait till our ridiculous merch line shows up.
Oh my god, I can't wait. Mugs. That's what I need. I just need lots of mugs.
Yes, coming to an Instagram ad near you.
Speaking of those.
Oh gosh. All right. So this chapter, I feel like I'm up first to summarize this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Give me that timer.
All right.
I'll get some magic.
Where are you, timer? Oh, there you are. Maybe? That's my clock. Wait. I can get to it through there. Timers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
All right. In chapter 11 of Punished by Rewards, Hooked on Learning, the Roots of Motivation in the Classroom, this talks about the things not only that kill motivation in the classroom, but what we should be doing instead. So, of course, we need to talk about motivation and removing rewards. But Alfie points out that's not just going to be as simple as you take away your PBIS system and then all of your kids magically fall in love with learning. And he said the reason for that is kind of multifaceted. Number one, it's because if a teacher is still making these unilateral decisions, regardless of their merit, it is in effect saying that the classroom does not belong to the students, but only to her. So if you're making like all of these decisions on your own. Also, if you are abandoning behaviorist tactics, it doesn't mean that you are necessarily establishing conditions that facilitate motivation. The other reason is because kids might resist the sudden withdrawal of rewards. And I know that Brittany has done this in her classroom and she's spoken about that as well. So all of these things can make it a bit challenging, but it's worth doing because if you look at the result that comes from removing things like grades or stuff that makes kids less motivated, it does show that kids are more likely to learn and they are more engrossed in their learning and they enjoy it more. And so the big three things that Alfie mentions doing in order to get to that point is to bolster your 3 C's. So your collaboration with the class, the content that you should be teaching, take a good look at that, make sure the kids are engaged in it and like they want to learn about it and it's interesting. And then the choice. So giving them choice, promoting autonomy, doing those things will help improve motivation in your classroom. Boom. You ready for that, Brett? You ready for yours?
Oh, my mic was muted.
Anticipation.
That was good.
Thank
That's what I
you.
said.
I went a
Note
little
was
bit
green.
off book. I started talking about things, and I'd be like, bring it back in.
Yeah. No, I think it was good. It was
Thank you.
on brand. On
All right,
point.
solid.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, you ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Okay, so this chapter, Hooked on Learning, talks about the roots of motivation in the classroom. So, how are we motivating students? And he speaks about collaboration, content, and choice, and how, if we think about those 3 things and we keep those in our line of focus, then we can create intrinsic motivation for our students. He starts by talking about that we have to remove rewards because rewards only decrease intrinsic motivation by focusing on the what more than the why. And how, when we are making big changes like that in a school or classroom, it's important to include the students and inform them um, of the change and allow them to have some say in the change because nobody likes things done to them. Then he heavily goes into, are grades necessary and how grades demotivate unmotivate learners, and the reasons why we use grades in the first place to sort, to make sure students understand how they're doing, and to motivate them to learn what we want them to. And he argues that if we need grades to motivate students, then maybe we should need to focus on what we're trying to teach them. Because if they're not motivated to learn what we're trying to teach them, we should be heavily concerned on the what. If they're not finding what we're doing interesting, then we need to be asking, should we be like, can we present that information in a different way? Like, how can we make that information more interesting and relevant to their lives?
All
Yeah.
right. Nice. I always
Mhm.
love that we pull out different things in our summaries.
Yeah. I really like the section of like when we look at the content of what's being taught.
Well, why don't we start with that then? Can we start with your favorite quote?
Well, my favorite quote was that students nobody likes things done to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say let me pull a quote that I highlighted from the content section.
Yeah.
Not learning is discovery. Actually, let's do emphasize understanding improvement. Okay, so I'm looking at the section learning as discovery and how he talks about like discovering. We should be emphasizing discovering something rather than learning it.
Mm.
And the bullet points, they're not really what I want to emphasize. If you want them to accept, much less actively support, no. De-emphasize
Well,
and
actually,
grades.
the
Well,
bullet points might be good for people to hear who haven't read the chapter.
okay. So the bullet points so the topic is learning as discovery and how we can intrinsically motivate students to be learners by making the content relative and interesting to them. And maybe I'll go over 3 or 4 and then you can go over 3 or 4. So the first one is allow for active learning. So we know that learning is best done when it's like hands-on, right? So active hands-on activities that is not just focused on like rote memorization. Try to weave those opportunities into your instruction. Second bullet point is give the reason for an assignment. So people, not just kids, anybody, whether it's teachers going to a PD or it's somebody sitting in, like a workshop, if you don't know why you're there or what you're supposed to be learning, then it's really hard to make
You are
connections.
mentally not there.
Yeah. And especially we see this with ADHD kids. Like us ADHDers have a really hard time like latching on to new information, but it's easier for us to latch on to new information when that information is connected to something we already know. So if you give a reason for an assignment and you connect it to like the students' lives or interests, it's going to be easier for them to remember the content.
And that's just good practice too.
It
you
is.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if a task is
Next
valuable,
t-shirt design. Sorry,
hey,
keep going.
that's what did I call it? My science brain chemistry?
Yes.
Chemical brain
Chemistry
chemistry. Yeah.
by Dr. Brittany.
So if a task is valuable, its value should be explained to those being asked to do it. If we expect children to want to learn something, we have to give them a clue as to why they should be motivated. So it's really like, and I struggle at doing this too as a teacher, like going over why they're learning it. Because I think for me, it's just, well, I find it important and I can make those connections, but the students don't necessarily make those connections. So I really want to get better at explicitly describing like why they're learning it. And then elicit their curiosity, and that's just connecting what they're learning to their surroundings or to their interests, becoming curious, getting them piquing their curiosity. He talks about how when like you read with young children, it's pretty natural for us to like pause and like it's pretty natural for us to pause and be like, so what do you think is going to happen next? And we do that to engage the reader, the kid that we're reading with.
And
but
also, that is just like one of my favorite classroom management hacks as well. So when I'm teaching sometimes, if the kids are like really hyped up or excited, I'll start talking and I might say the next thing, and it has no important value, but I say it like this. And they're all like leaning forward in their seats listening to me saying, open up to page 331. But they're all like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
It changes the vibe. It gets them curious and excited.
It does. And like those creative, simple techniques that just like create So novelty or interest, those are really good ways to like hook your students or like
Mhm.
refocus them. And then do you want to do the last two, the set an
Yeah.
example?
Yeah, so I think the setting example is really important. So for
Hmm.
us as the teacher to share out what we find enjoyable about school. And for me, especially, I feel like with my face as well, I have to watch this one because I've had kids come over to me and they're like, "Do you enjoy teaching?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I love it."
No.
And they're like, "You look kind of upset sometimes." And I'm like, "Oh, my face looks like this." And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, no, that's just my resting face. I'm just chilling. Like, I'm just thinking about what you guys are working on, what we're gonna do next week. But I'm just gonna do it looking like this."
Remember, I
So,
think I think I had you do the
oh yeah, moving it with the sign.
yeah. Looks like a Renaissance painting of
Thank you,
like
thank you. There are worse things I've been compared to. So yeah, setting an example for the kids. And I highlighted that teachers can also set an example by admitting when they don't know something, by demonstrating tenacity in the face of failure, by
Mm.
questioning the conventional wisdom, and by showing how they make sense of a piece of writing that's hard to understand. And I've actually thought about doing different things to model failure because I want kids to see how normal it is to learn things. Because
Mm.
oftentimes they'll come over to me and they'll be so upset about something. And they're like, "Oh, I didn't understand this." I'm like, "But you're 12.
Yeah.
You know, like that's okay. You're going to learn this stuff eventually. It just takes time." Like one of them was telling me the other day, I don't even teach math, but they were talking to me about like the fractions or ratios or something. And I'm like, "You're 12. You've got time. Like it'll click. Just got to give it some
Yeah.
time and practice." But I thought maybe if I like try to learn the violin, or if I practice learning Portuguese
Mm.
on Duolingo with them and they can see me forget the
Mhm.
word, especially if they're native speakers, they'd be like, "You don't know that word?" But
Mhm.
that you can model that learning with them and normalize it. And then finally, to welcome mistakes and to show that, you know, they're information. Mistakes is information for us to change what we're doing and get a different result.
I want to emphasize that point where like it is so important for teachers to be students. So
Hmm.
we never forget what it's like to learn something new.
Yep.
I mean, a part of my ADHD is that I just like I attach myself to learning new things because I'm definitely like an absorber of information. I've tried to learn how to code, how to play the cello, how to play the ukulele, which I'm pretty good at now. I started a business, like blogging, writing. Like I just try I learn all of these new things and that does help my perspective when I'm in the classroom of what it's like to be a learner, what it's like to be a student. And that helps you empathize with students way more.
It does. Like even when I went back to grad school, I remember
Mhm.
getting assignments. Like even honestly, even doing the book club, like I check how
Mhm.
many pages each chapter is before reading it to figure out
Yeah.
what kind of commitment we're looking at.
Yeah.
Or in grad school when I get assignments I didn't like, or if I knew I had to like have a paper due and I was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?" I would be in my chair, lean back and go, "Oh,"
Mhm.
in my chair. And then this was years ago, and I was like, "How many times have I gotten on kids for when I tell them you have to do the assignment, they go, oh," and I'm like, "Don't do it. That's disrespectful."
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm doing it because I just don't want to do all this work. It's a
Right.
lot."
Yeah.
And it's not the act of learning; it was the work on top of a schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Which he mentions that how like they learn um how it's important or not how it's important, but let me okay, I'm trying to find the quote in the book and
Mhm.
that's just like distracting me way too much. So I'm gonna go off script. So he talks about how content in the classroom or like our curriculum is set up to just be like separate tasks um taught on or taught on a schedule,
Mhm.
and that can be incredibly unmotivating to people. because when it like puts pressure on how much you should know and when, and that's not how people learn. Like people don't learn linearly.
Yeah.
Like we learn, it's just like a jumble of experiences. Like sometimes we're really, really good at um making progress some days, like, and then other days it feels like we make no progress, and other days it feels like we've gone backwards. Like learning the
Mhm.
cello is a perfect example. Like some days I'd go to my like practice or to my coaching session, and I'd kill it. And then the next week I'd go and it'd be like I'm a brand new student again.
Mhm.
Like so learning is just such like it's like this.
Yeah, it's messy.
Yeah, and for like our podcast listeners, I'm making really like weird gestures with my hands. But instead of being like perfectly like a straight
Yeah,
line.
and that's what Sharon and I were talking about too when we did our
Mhm.
reframing failure workshop, which you
Mm,
can listen to in the village. Like there's so much good stuff in there. But she talked about how we treat education like it's all these things of paint, like all stacked up nice and neat. When in
yeah.
reality, paint is all over the place. Everything is mixing together. It's
Yeah.
crossing to different classes. Like it's a mess and it's
Mhm.
okay. And that's how
Yeah.
it should be.
Yeah. Learning is super messy, and that's what the fun of it.
Yeah, you
I don't
can't,
have
you're
to
gonna
do
stress
anything
yourself
clean.
out just
Mhm.
trying to stay contained. So the quote that there's a lot in here I highlighted. I used a purple highlighter this time, so there's a lot of purple in this book. But this is the quote that I wanted to talk about tonight, and this one comes from page 224, and it is a quote. I think it might not be by Caroline's, but she's mentioned right beforehand. So it says, I have heard teachers give it up after a single attempt. So he's talking about having students like work together, self manage, and navigate autonomy and navigate like just doing projects and things like that. So I have heard teachers give it up after a single attempt, saying children cannot behave responsibly, then remove all further opportunity for students to practice and grow in their responsible behavior. I have also heard teachers say children cannot think for themselves and proceed thereafter to do children's thinking for them. But these same teachers would never say, quote, these children cannot read by themselves, end quote, and therefore, after, remove any opportunity for them to learn to read. And I think this is huge because I have this mindset a lot in my school. And I think sometimes my coworkers think I'm a little bit crazy for like trying things again. Like think
Mhm.
about like the two chattiest kids in your class who are besties and they just want to do everything together, but they get distracted.
Mhm.
I don't want them to have to be on opposite sides of the line, opposite ends of the classroom. Like I want them to be able to work together. And I
Mhm.
tell them that too. I'm like, I want you guys to work together. So let's practice doing this time. Why don't you
Mhm.
set a timer? Why don't you write these things out? See how it goes for you. And we'll just keep practicing
Yeah.
and treating it like that too. Like even if everything falls apart, I'm
Mhm.
not like, how could you have done that? I'm like, all right, so that didn't work out the way we were hoping for, right? What
Yep.
went wrong? What can we do differently? What can I do to support you?
Yeah. I think it's crazy that we try to have so much control, um, when when the goal is to teach our students the strategies they can use when they're independent, like in
Mm-hmm.
college. But we're not teaching them any strategies. We're just controlling the environment so much that they have no choice but to stay in line. So, like, I'll let my kids listen to music while they work because I know how hard it was for me to stay concentrated while listening to music when I work, and how I had to learn how to like stay focused and not like skip songs, spend a half hour
Mm-hmm.
trying to find that perfect song or get like distracted by a YouTube music video. Like I want them to learn that
Yeah.
important skill necessary to be in college, um, when they have like someone who could coach them, which is me. Like, so what was I talking about? Like, just the importance of, letting them experience, like, failure and the independence
Mhm.
and be able to manage, like, working with your
Yeah.
bestie.
Learning how
You
to manage yourself.
Yeah, like, when you start a job, especially, like, in our, like, 18 when we're 18, 19, we will become best friends with someone we work with, right?
Yeah.
Like, at that time, that's when we find, like, our adult friends, and if you don't know how to manage how to work with your bestie,
Mhm.
y'all are gonna get fired, like,
Yeah,
because
it's
you're
not
not
gonna
gonna
go
get
well.
anything done. So why not learn that skill in the classroom? Like
And the language to do it as well. Like even today
mhm,
I was thinking, it's been state testing week. And so
mm,
and grades are also closing.
mhm,
So just double whammy. And in the afternoon, my after testing all day, mind you, I've been having the students build an archaeological site. So my classroom looks like, at the end of Costco, how they have all those boxes you can grab and put your
yes.
groceries in. It
Those
looks
are
like,
that's my favorite.
it's pretty nice, but right now my classroom looks just like that area of
Mhm,
Costco. So it's a hot mess express. Plus, I have like
yeah,
all my anchor charts covered up for testing. So my room is in disarray at the moment.
mhm,
And I'm trying to pull kids aside, get them caught up on their assignments, go over different standards. Um, and so I'm trying to conference with them. And so I was like, all right, guys, I have my weekly workers. How would you feel? Because I'm not going to be able to conference with you and give you my full attention while I'm also like walking around managing everything.
mhm,
So, weekly workers, how would you feel about you taking that role in the class today and like facing the class, checking in on people, seeing if they need help while I pull people? And they were like, yeah, let's do it. One of my classrooms, it was okay. It was okay.
mhm,
One of my classrooms killed it. I
mhm,
was so impressed by them. And I was like, wow, look at you. Even the language that they were using, because I would tell them, like, okay, if somebody is, what did I say? Like, if they're like being loud or something,
mhm,
I said, do I ever tell you to shush? And they're like, no. And I said, do I ever tell you be quiet?
uh,
They're like, "No." And I'm like, "What do I say?" And they're like, "You ask us if we need help
mhm,
or if we need something." And I'm like, "Yeah,
mhm,
so go check in, see what's going on. Maybe they're excited about something." But you want to have an asset-based lens when you approach the situation. And like I was giving them different sentence starters to use to talk to
yeah,
their classmates. So it was really cool
yeah,
watching them take charge like that.
yeah. Giving them the language to help each other, which that's another thing. This is why we had hour-long episodes.
This is why.
But
Last
okay,
rabbit
so
hole.
yeah. So what we were talking about, like, giving them the language, that made me connect it to collaborative learning and how, like, your quote
Mhm.
was, "If you don't try or if they don't succeed in working collaboratively, teachers are just so quick to just be like, "Oh, they can't."
Yeah.
But rarely do we teach our kids how to work in a group.
Mhm.
Like, we just kind of assume that they already know that, where you have to, like, explicitly model and give roles. Like, you have to explicitly teach how to work with other people, or it
Yeah.
just becomes this, like, thought dumping session, and then one person takes over, everybody else disengages, or a fight happens. Like,
Mhm.
we
And the executive functioning skills that go
Mhm.
into it as well, It's a lot.
Yep. Yeah. So, when we try those new strategies, and they're so important to try, we can't take failure as, like, an all or nothing, right? Like, we
Mhm.
just, go back to the drawing board.
With the
And
kids too,
yes,
ideally. Go back with
yes.
them.
Which this is a really good segue to my quote, which was, the first page, which did a really good job of hooking me with this chapter. I'm just scrolling back in my Kindle.
Mhm. And while you're
Um
that's what that is. I hear the tapping noise over there.
oh,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah, that's
aggressive
me.
scrolling you've
I
got,
know,
Britt.
I'm very aggressive in my scrolling.
Did you find it?
Um, yes.
Okay.
So, um, I'm gonna read this. I'm just gonna kinda, like, chop this up and read it,
Mhm.
like, it's, like, 2 sections. So the section is called Remove the Rewards. And Alfie writes, if a teacher stops using extrinsic motivators tomorrow, students are not going to be leaping out of their seats cheering, hooray, now we can be intrinsically motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 3 reasons they won't do that. First, they were not consulted about the change. A teacher who makes unilateral decisions, regardless of their merit, is in effect saying that the classroom does not belong to the students, but only to her, and their preferences do not matter. People do not usually cheer when things are done to them. That is why teachers contemplating a new way of doing things ought to bring the children in on the process. In this case, by opening up a discussion with them at a level appropriate to their age about why people learn and what impact rewards really have. So this goes for any strategy you're trying to implement, include the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this really emphasizes a point that I've been like, it's just been slowly like I had this veil in front of my face for some reason, and the veil was like seeing children not as human beings, but like as just like I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. Seeing them as just maybe like vessels that I needed to dump
Mm-hmm.
information into, and morals, and like little, I don't know, like little, I don't even know. Like I was going to say robots, but that absolutely makes no sense. Like I just didn't see them, or maybe I saw them as human, like human beings, like with the same needs, the same desires, the same need for autonomy and control, and the same ability to like really like take care of each other, and
Mm-hmm.
to make good choices. Like I wasn't
It's
seeing
like
all of
othering.
that. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. It
Mm-hmm.
is. And now I'm doing this, like this book club, and I'm doing all of my toolkit stuff, and I'm just doing all of this research and trying out these new strategies,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing so much unlearning and unpacking that I'm giving students freedom, a lot of freedom. And they are just surprising the hell out of me at every turn. Like and then I like I sit back and I'm like, well, why am I surprised?
And what I
Like,
was thinking of too is,
mhm,
what if it happened sooner?
right.
Like, what
I
if
know.
this was not happening? Like, I teach 6th grade,
Mhm.
what if this was their kindergarten
Mhm.
experience, kindergarten through grade 5?
Yeah.
Then the things that we would not have to unteach them,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then the skills they would already have, like, oh,
I know.
imagine that. If they've been learning how to like if they had asset-based language and they learned
Mhm.
how to have self-control from kindergarten, which also, little plug, I have a self-control lesson that you could use for your students, that teaches them about self-control. But imagine if they learned all of that stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
where would they be? But instead, we get so stuck in this control
Mhm.
paradigm. And also, while
It
you were
is.
talking about classroom management and the classroom management systems,
Mhm.
I was thinking that this could be helpful for our listeners or viewers. I do have a classroom management system that's an anti classroom management system
Mhm.
that gets you out of rewards and using anything. It's called Levels, and it's based on intrinsic motivation and like developing what you want your ideal classroom to look like with your students. And
Mhm.
basically, it's a management system for you as the teacher. Like, that's the best way of describing it. Like, you track how well you are meeting students' needs, having conversations with them,
Mhm.
and upholding your expectations and boundaries. And it's been really helpful to a lot of teachers. So if you're interested, that's in my profile.
Um, you know, you inspired me to make a flow chart.
Yeah. Oh, I have the
Mhm.
flow chart too. Yeah, I posted a video on, I don't even know what day it is. Tuesday? Monday? I don't even know.
Mhm.
A video of a flow chart that I created that you can hang in the hallway wherever you have one-on-one conversations with students. And if you go back to my profile, it's probably the most recent video. It's April 11th right now if you're listening to this in the
Mm.
future. But it's around that time.
Mhm.
And if you comment flowchart, you'll get the link to get it for free as well. But hang it in the hallway, and then you can talk to your students in a not triggered state and actually get to the root of what's going on.
Yeah,
But
so
your
so
flowchart, what's yours called?
that well, your flowchart inspired my flowchart. So your
Mm,
flowchart is like how to regulate yourself. So I created a flowchart that's how to process with students.
mm.
Yeah, so put both of those together and you've got an entire system of regulation and co-regulation. Mine isn't as pretty as yours, but yeah.
I don't believe it. You're an art
Mine's really long.
teacher.
I
It was
know.
a lot. It was a lot trying to fit all of that in.
I know. It was really hard. Like I was
Mhm.
doing Tetris. Oh, okay.
So
35 minutes and 49 seconds.
not bad for us.
Not bad.
So what would your action step be then, Brittany, for
Oh,
teachers or caregivers who are listening to this
okay.
episode?
So I just posted a carousel about why spring is the best time to start like new strategies because we're like we know our students, we can predict their behavior. It's good to introduce some novelty. And one of those slides is include the students in that decision making and in that process. My strategy goes right along with my quote where people do not usually cheer when things are done to them.
Mhm.
Include the students. They will surprise the hell out of you if you give them the chance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And mine's pretty similar to that as well. It relates to my quote to not give up on these skills of autonomy, navigating choice, navigating collaboration, different content, just because it goes haywire. You know,
Mhm.
just like we wouldn't stop teaching reading, like the quote says. If the kids can't read by themselves, don't stop trying to equip kids with the skills that they need
Mhm.
just because it makes you uncomfortable or because it's a bit hard to manage or it gets loud in the room. Like you practice those things and it's going to improve. And then you also like it's twofold as well. Like it helps the kid, but also you practice as a teacher. So even if you only have like a month of school left and you are
Mhm.
practicing and doing these things, like you're filling your toolbox and you're learning what works and what doesn't work and how you truly help students.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. All right.
So somebody wanted to know where they can get the flow charts. So my flow chart is attached to my welcome email. So if you subscribe, you go to teachingtoariot.com and subscribe to my email list. I send out freebies and a newsletter that comes up like with ignited stuff and we came out with a workshop, like all the
Mhm.
announcements. If you subscribe to that email, you will get the flow chart along with an ADHD checklist in the welcome email. And then Ash, where can they get yours?
Yeah, mine's also tied to the welcome email that you get from me right now. So if you go to my bio on Instagram and then click join newsletter, it'll be automatically sent to you. Or you can go to my most recent post and comment flowchart, and then you'll get a
Mhm.
DM with the link. So whichever works for you. And I feel like we should also tell them about the workshop we're doing too, in case they're
Oh yeah.
interested.
Yes, yes. Um, so we are putting on a workshop that is all about ADHD and giving you strategies and the information to be able to reach ADHD students. And these strategies really, I mean, it's just best practice for everybody. Like it's going to help
Yeah.
your ADHD kids, but it's also going to help your neurotypical students too. We are going to go through like the brain science. That's how I love to talk about it. I'm actually very knowledgeable and like
Don't
the brain.
actually yourself. Don't actually
Oh my
yourself.
god, did I?
You
Did I
did.
use disempowering language? Okay,
Hmm.
so I'm very knowledgeable with neurodivergent brain structures, chemistry,
Chemical brain
systems.
chemistry.
Yeah. And I came up with a way that really does a great job at communicating all of that information and that knowledge. So it's like easy to digest. And we're going to be talking about the ADHD brain. And then we're going to be talking about specific strategies that you can use in your classroom. And these strategies you'll be able to implement the next day. And then we have Ash's unit, or can you talk about what you came?
Yeah, so they align perfectly. So
Mhm.
Brittany is equipping you with the knowledge for yourself as the educator, and my unit equips your class with the knowledge that they need to support each other and themselves. So the unit is something that you teach to your students in your class. Every unit I do starts with a game, and this starts off with a game as well. And then you go over how an ADHD brain works in kid-friendly language. You talk about like the benefits that come from this, why we need to have neurodiversity in our society, and also some challenges that our neurodiverse friends might face. And here's how we support ourselves. And here's how we support our friends. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll see in schools or hear from teachers that the students who are the ADHD students, they just frustrate everybody, and then their classmates get frustrated, the teachers get frustrated, and we got to stop that. So this creates an inclusive environment that fosters joy, sense of belonging,
Mhm.
and supports students in the process. So all of this, this is going to be an epic
It is. I'm really excited
workshop we're
for it.
doing, and we can give you PD hours as well.
Heck
We
yeah!
we are going to give you a certificate. You'll get credit with your school to come hang out with us.
Yeah, have them pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want, we're actually doing pre-sale right now
Yeah.
till the end of the week. So we got a couple more days. So if you are interested in joining the workshop, we'll have that in our bios.
Yes.
And if you use code early, that will work and give you a coupon till the end of the week. So if you want to come, you got a few more days to get that discount and join us.
Yeah. All right, Ash.
It's been real.
Yeah, it's been real. Don't we have a
Yes.
sign off that we
do have, I mean, mostly. All right. So thank you for listening to this week's episode of Ignited. We hope this episode left you feeling remoralized.
And re-energized.
And until next time,
Bye.
I'm Ashlyn.